Steven, let's walk back. When did you officially start in real estate, and maybe walk us through what that first year was like?
Yeah, I mean, the first year was really rough. So I originally was worked in the corporate world. I was an engineering consultant. So I was very successful at doing that, climbed the corporate ladder super quick. I was making really good money. But I just saw the ceiling. Like, my boss, he was there for 30 years. He made me like 20 grand more than me a year. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be sitting in this seat or in that seat the next 30 years of my life and really not going to get much more for it. And then like in that guy, like my boss, I mean, he was in his 60s and still couldn't retire, like he did not have enough money to retire and live a good life. So I'm like, I just can't do that. I mean, you're literally looking at your future at that point. And at that point, like I was already starting to get into the real estate investing game. I picked up about 5 rental properties, was growing my rental portfolio. So I kept doing that. I started getting into flipping, and it just came to my boss at one point. He was just like, "Hey, I don't appreciate you working on real estate." And I was just like, I don't understand what you mean. And he goes, yeah, he's like, I don't appreciate that you're like buying rental properties, flipping properties, whatever. And I'm like, I don't understand how this affects you or affects the business. And he's like, well, you're not giving me and this company your full focus. And I'm like, I'm giving, and during the work hours and during the evenings, I was focused on what I needed to do for the job and getting it done. Like I focused, very careful to segment my time. I wasn't using the company time to build my real estate business. But he's like, well, he's like, yeah, he's like, well, I know you're not doing that, but I still like if in the evenings, like you need to be focused on here and like being ready for work the next day. And I'm like, I don't understand how that makes any sense. Like if I went home and watched, so you're saying if I went home, watched TV, did nothing, you'd be okay with that. But since I'm going home and like figuring out other ways to make money, that becomes an issue for you. And basically he was like, yeah. So he's like, so you had to pick real estate or this company. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna pick real estate. So so yeah, so I didn't really think that all the way through.
Recording in progress.
Oh, sorry,
Um,
what happened there?
Yeah, so I didn't really think that all the way through, because obviously when you get started and you go from making, $150,000 a year to making nothing, then banks all of a sudden don't want to lend you money.
Yeah, they don't love that at first, do they?
No, they don't. Even though I did have a track record of being successful, I did have like a commercial line of credit and did have some things going for me. So I was able to keep moving, but just not moving in the pace that I needed to move. Um,
So you fired your boss.
yeah,
You're just like, all right, well, fuck you then. I'm like gonna go do my own thing. And really his rationale made no sense.
no,
Like the fact that you had ambition was held against you, which is crazy. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. So you fired your boss, you're in your first year of real estate, you go from a cushy 6-figure income, doing well, a career that you did really well in, and
Yep.
here you are, you're in your first year in real estate. Walk us through like the first 6 months.
Well, I mean, I did not want to be a real estate agent. I mean, I was like kind of focused on that. Like I was like, when you're an investor, you kind of have a bad taste. Especially like back then, we don't have good experiences with real estate agents. You have kind of bad taste in your mouth from real estate agents, right? I think we've all worked with obviously real estate agents that we would have, like if we were working with them as a client, we would have a bad experience with. So I was like, why would I ever want to do that? Because I didn't actually see what a good real estate agent was until later. But so I was like, I don't want to be a real estate agent. I want to build a investment portfolio. I want to do all that, right? So I partnered up with a guy and we flipped I helped him flip 100 houses in 2017. And that was a good way to really get into understanding real estate, the real estate market. I was able to make some decent money, but as we started to get to the end of 2017, deals became harder to find. And like to get the kind of spreads to make the kind of money that I wanted to make, like it was just becoming very difficult. And so I just was like, well, I don't see this as a long-term game because I don't see deals getting any easier anytime soon, right? So at the end of 2017, so I left my job middle of 2016. So at the end of 2017, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try a real estate agent. I'm gonna try commit to being a full-time real estate agent and see how that goes. So that's kind of when I made that. It was like November, December of 2017 when I dived into being a real estate agent.
Okay,
So,
so you did some flipping. So you helped
yep,
with flipping. That's a lot of properties that you guys were doing. So I don't know who this guy was, but 100 properties seems like a lot to manage.
that was me managing it all. Yeah, it was crazy.
You were managing 100 flips.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was absurd. I mean,
So
I worked from 6 a.m. because that's a lot of time when contractors would get to work until like 10 p.m. every night, you know.
that's just wild. So now you're like, okay, I'm starting my real estate business now. How did the first 6 months go? What were some of the things that you did and some of the trial and error that you laugh about today?
Yeah, I mean, I came in with a very false confidence, you know, because I I was really successful. I have an engineering degree. You know, I graduated third of my class engineering. I graduated, second of my class with an MBA. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm smart, right? So I was like, okay, I'm really smart. I'm climbing the corporate ladder. I was able to flip a lot of houses. I was doing a lot of things that people can never do. So I was like, I know a shitload about houses. I know a shitload about real estate, right? So this is going to be fucking easy. You know, that's what I was like. So then I was like, oh, okay, well, how do I find people though? You know, and then when I finally did find people, like I would scare them because I knew so much about how, I would like give them, diarrhea of the mouth, like tell them so much, way more stuff than they needed. And I wasn't listening, I wasn't listening to them as clients, listening to what they want. I was just over there just trying to be like this expert, just, mouthing off. So I mean, it was a hard transition. I mean, it was, I lost a good amount of money that first 6 months, and then, I mean, even until like, I would say it was a hard transition, fully until, I mean, even until we started coaching, like I would still have my doubts in the back of my head, like maybe I should go back to the corporate world, maybe I should, maybe this isn't for me, but I kept going at it. I leveraged my flipping experience because like I was still kind of doing some flips. So I would like post them on my Facebook page, like kind of like in middle rehabs, and people like really love that kind of stuff. So I started getting a lot of engagement real quickly on my Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would drive traffic, which would drive, and then I figured out how to like drive that to make leads, but obviously, social media leads are great lead source, but they also don't buy houses right away, especially if you don't have good follow-up, if you don't know what good follow-up is, if you don't have a good system, so, I just kind of built in, started from scratch. I had no sales experience, I had, I'm naturally an introvert, so I'm not out at a bar, like talking to 30 people, like I'm at a bar, looking at my drink, so it was a very hard transition for me. So,
Well, it's funny because, with your engineering degree, the way your brain thinks, you think in systems. And so that has become an asset for you, but you've had to learn how to make it an asset in this business because it's very much a people business. And initially, when you're really getting this thing off the ground, it's a lot of it is based on your emotional intelligence, right?
right.
There's a joke, I'm more like Captain Kirk and you're more like Spock. And this is why our whole thing works quite well. So year one, how many sales did you do in year one approximately?
I did like 29.
29, which is really good, but keep in mind he's in Kansas, right? Smaller unit out there.
Yeah, I mean, I made like 70, 80,000, spent like 30,000, trying to figure it out.